The Jamaat-e-Islami is the power behind the throne these days. Muhammad Yunus is only the mouthpiece of the Jamaat-e-Islami. And the Jamaat-e-Islami is bringing in, or wanting to bring in, an Islamist government. You know, in the interim government, interim regime of Muhammad Yunus, you have all the Islamist parties. In fact, the regime change operation itself was accompanied by vitriolic anti-India rhetoric, and this has only gone up through the months. Sheikh Hasina's plane had barely left Dhaka on the 5th of August last year when the attacks on the minorities began. The Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis, the Ahmadiyyas, a completely unbridled violence, absolutely rapes, killings, lynchings, taking away properties, smashing businesses, surrounding people and forcing them to resign, whether they're a Hindu primary teacher or a Hindu college professor or university professor. It was absolutely pre-planned.
Bangladesh is boiling and the situation is dire, which is impacting India and could impact India's security situation. To discuss this and more, I'm being joined by former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Ambassador Veena Sikri. Ambassador Sikri, thank you so much for joining us. Now, how do you see the situation in Bangladesh spilling into and affecting the security situation in India?
You know, I think the first thing that we have to look at, India is always interested in a democratic, peaceful and stable Bangladesh. And if it's democratic, peaceful and stable, as it was under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for 15 years, you'd have development, economic growth, development, and people benefiting from 6.5%, 7% rate of growth. The problem of the present situation is that it was a regime change operation last July, August. It was not a revolution. It was not a spontaneous uprising. It was not a spontaneous students' uprising. So here you have a regime change operation brought in through the Jamaat-e-Islami, backed by Pakistan, and behind Pakistan you have the other Western countries. And the Jamaat-e-Islami is the power behind the throne these days. Muhammad Yunus is only the mouthpiece of the Jamaat-e-Islami. And the Jamaat-e-Islami is bringing in, or wanting to bring in, an Islamist government. You know, in the interim government, interim regime of Muhammad Yunus, you have all the Islamist parties, the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, the Hizb ut-Tahrir, the organization Hifazat-e-Islam, and others. And in the elections, you will see that it's the Islamist parties. Look at the killing of Usman Hadi. He was a political figure, very little known till last July, August, but rabidly anti-India. So in this urge to bring in an Islamist government, anti-Indianism is at an all-time high. In fact, the regime change operation itself was accompanied by vitriolic anti-India rhetoric, and this has only gone up through the months. Now, this in itself becomes, in a way, when it's artificially created, then obviously you worry about it, because you have the Jamaat-e-Islami leaders talking about 5 million people marching on India. You have Muhammad Yunus going to China and talking about Northeast India being part of, we'll give you access, only Bangladesh has access to Northeast India. And you have Muhammad Yunus presenting books showing, the so-called greater Bangladesh maps to various people. So all this is creating definitely a security situation for India, and a great concern that there will be a spillover. Now, I want to also say one more thing here, that while last year, in the immediate aftermath of the regime change operation, when Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh on the 5th of August, there was a huge anti-incumbency factor against her. And there were a lot of people who bought into, the definition of Sheikh Hasina's term, so-called fascist and so on. And because of that, and because the propaganda was that everything that Sheikh Hasina did was because of India, so that rhetoric sort of went along. But now, 18 months after the, this regime change operation, you find the situation is completely different. The Awami League vote bank is intact. It may have gone down a lot in last July, August, maybe to 15%. But today, everybody in Bangladesh is saying it was better before. Aage bhalo chilo, it was better before. We want the better regime now. Factories have closed down. There is unemployment. There is inflation. investment. So there's a great deal. And so the anti-Indianism today clashes with what the people are believing in. So it's leading to even more unstable situation within Bangladesh.
Right. You spoke about extremist forces. What are the structural weaknesses that have really allowed these extremist forces to gain ground in Bangladesh?
I think there is no structural weakness except that this regime change operation, Muhammad Yunus, is backed by the Jamaat-e-Islami. Everything that he's doing and saying is as a mouthpiece of the Jamaat-e-Islami. And as I told you, they've brought into the interim regime all the Islamist parties. If there is an interim regime, of course, this one was sworn in on the constitution of Bangladesh, which had no provision for an interim regime. But even if you go by the old definition, which was earlier in the Bangladesh constitution, it was supposed to be a caretaker government just for 90 days with a non-party group of advisors to the chief advisor. And they're supposed to conduct elections, and that's all. But this regime deliberately said, no, we will do reforms before election and we will have elections after 4 years. It was opposed by the people. The demand of the people was for early elections. And giving into that pressure, Mohammed Yunus has now called elections in February of 2026. But still, the predilection is entirely in favor of an Islamist regime. I want to tell you that, when Usman Hadi was assassinated, as I said, a small, little known person, but now the way in which he's being eulogized, he's being buried next to the grave of the national poet of Bangladesh, Qazi Nazrul Islam, and the way in which the Western embassies, the German embassy actually flew its flag at half mast. You had Americans and others sending out strong messages of mourning and sorrow and so on. It really seems to be that many of these countries are taking a highly partisan approach, and that is completely undiplomatic. You don't take this kind of partisan approach when you're. So I think this effort to push the Islamist line has really got. I think it should get all of us in India concerned, because why are they doing it? Why are they supporting? Because, this Osman Hadi, he was really known for his rabidly anti-India speeches. And he's not even in the Jamaat-e-Islami, not even any of the mainstream Islamist parties. So I think this is illustrative of what is going on in Bangladesh, pushing this extremist line and wanting an Islamist regime to come to power. Maybe, as I said, they're trying to counter the resurgence of the Awami League vote bank, of the support for the Awami League. They want to, counter the BNP, because BNP, thinking themselves as a major political party, once the Awami League activities had been banned, they thought they will be ready made to get all the votes. But now, according to whatever they are showing, the IRI, the International Republican Institute poll surveyed and published recently, shows all this. And it's worrying. I don't know why it's happening. I don't know why it should be. Is it because the anti-India messaging of this regime why is that finding favor with the Western countries? I don't understand.
That's right. Then let's just zoom out a little. And the reactions that we're seeing from across the world, do you think that has really emboldened these elements that are committing such violence against minorities and secular institutions? And does this really reflect on the broader ideological trends in the country?
Well, right from the 5th of August, I think Sheikh Hasina's plane had barely left Dhaka on the 5th of August last year, when the attacks on the minorities began. The Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis, the Ahmadiyyas, a completely unbridled violence, absolutely rapes, killings, lynchings, taking away properties, smashing businesses, surrounding people and forcing them to resign, whether they're a Hindu primary teacher or a Hindu college professor or university professor. It was absolutely pre-planned. There's no way in which, at the drop of a hat, at sort of a few minutes' notice, the moment the plane takes off, you have the unleashing of this complete violence. And there's been documentation of that. But there's been very little response either from within the Bangladesh interim regime or from anywhere across the world to this unbridled violence. And of course, India has taken it up. And if you recall, Prime Minister Modi's message of felicitation to Muhammad Yunus on the 8th of August last year felicitated him and assured economic cooperation, but it said, please look after the minority. They took cognizance of the fact that even in just 4 days, the kind of volume, the extent and volume of the violence unleashed against the minorities had never been seen before. Maybe not even in 71, that in the space of 4 days you get this kind of violence. So I think that this messaging was there right from the beginning. It's not that what happened to Deepu Chandra Das, it was, I mean, what happened a few days ago to Deepu Chandra Das in Mymensingh near Dhaka was absolutely barbaric, a medieval scene, that you take an innocent factory worker out of his factory. He's handed over to the mobs on the grounds that he has committed some blasphemy. And the mobs beat him to death and then put him on a mast, and his dead body is burnt and thrown on the highway and things like that. I mean, it's unbelievable. But the point is that all this while, these attacks have been happening, and Muhammad Yunus has dismissed them, saying, this is fake news from India. Even in New York, when he was questioned, even in his foreign travels, wherever he's questioned, he's always dismissed it as fake news from India. But this time, because there's been such a furor about this attack, he's been forced to take cognizance. He says 7 people have been arrested. It's a sham. These 7 people will be released on bail, and nothing will happen to them. This has happened many times before in the last 18 months, and we know the same thing is going to happen again. So I think this kind of
Ambassador Sikri, could Bangladesh's trajectory mirror Pakistan's historical patterns of political Islam, and what lessons should India really draw from that comparison?
Well, Pakistan is definitely wanting to establish a pre-1971 regime in Bangladesh. You have to notice that all the people who took part in the regime change operation, whether it's Pakistan, Jamaat-e-Islami, America, Razakar, they were all the losers in 1971. And now they think that they have won the scene and they want to bring back what they had in 1971. And that was, using Bangladesh for launching attacks against India, using Bangladesh for establishing, like in Pakistan, a highly Islamist regime. Even the non-state actors supported by the Pakistan military, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, they already declared their presence in Bangladesh. And they've already declared themselves as fighters, on the side of the Islamists. So I think that certainly Pakistan is all out to do that, and they have embedded themselves fully with the Bangladesh army. Asim Munir has said the next attack is coming from the east. All these signs of, looking at India's sovereignty and territorial integrity, whether it is the northeast or other places, these are very alarming signs, and they show the clear indication of what Pakistan has in mind. So that should make India all the more concerned about this, because the Jamaat-e-Islami government, should it come to power, is going to be Pakistan's A-team in Bangladesh. They're going to be in Pakistan.
For India, the situation is really serious. How do you think India should recalibrate its diplomatic and security strategy in light of this rising extremism and political fragility in Dhaka?
Look, India has shown a lot of strategic restraint so far. They have conveyed in no uncertain, government of India has conveyed in no uncertain terms India's concerns to Bangladesh, whether it is about the anti-India rhetoric, about these this loud declaration of making, attacks on India, whether it is about the sidelining of the Islamist groups, sidelining of the Awami League and other groups, not allowing a participatory election, which is very important for democracy and stability. We have conveyed it in no uncertain terms. Recently, when Osman Hadi died, immediately the Indian High Commissioner was called and said, oh, you're responsible. But now the Bangladesh police authorities have been forced to retract. They said, no, there's no evidence that the killer went to India. It is known that the killer was somebody who was seen in a lot of political rallies with Osman Hadi in the last few weeks. So, it was probably an inside disagreement or whatever, I don't know. But it's clear that everything that they're blaming India for is not correct. So India has, of course, responded very sharply, but India has also shown strategic restraint in continuing to send all the trade, the rice, etc. that is there. We have shown our willingness to continue the economic cooperation. But I can tell you that government of India is very seriously looking at what is happening, at the deteriorating situation, because at the moment the elections have been declared and the campaigning has started, you've seen complete instability. The police, the government, nobody is willing or able to control, and it is a complete anarchy. It's been so for the last 18 months, but now, the anarchy has come out in such great strength that, one really has to wonder for India whether our border security and the stability of the regime in Bangladesh, how adversely it's going to affect India. So I'm sure that the government of India is going to be very strong on its insistence on free, fair, and inclusive elections in Bangladesh, that without the inclusivity and participatory elections, they will not be credible. And without credible elections, the people of Bangladesh will not accept it. It's happened many times in the past before that the Bangladesh people have not accepted credible elections which they consider are not credible. So that will lead to further instability, further unrest, further violence. So I think the government of India is certainly looking at the steps and the action they should be taking.
Finally, before I let you go, Ambassador Sikri, how much do you think the Sheikh Hasina factor really weighs in over here? In her recent interview, she talked about her potential political assassination should she ever have to go back to Dhaka, to Bangladesh. How much do you think she figures in this relationship between India and Bangladesh today?
Look, I think first of all that Sheikh Hasina's presence in India does not affect our ties with Bangladesh in any way whatsoever. Look, we have extradition cases pending with so many countries. We have extradition cases pending with the UK, Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi. Our relations with UK are continuing. We've even signed an FTA with them in the last few months. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been in India for decades and decades and decades. Our relationship with China is continuing. We know each other's sensitivities. We continue the relationship, and the extradition is a very complex legal process. It cannot have an open night. Even last December, without even doing a court case, Bangladesh regime was sending notes saying send back Sheikh Hasina. It's not credible at all. It's just something political. They're just trying to make a show to their own people that they're doing this. So I think we have to recognize that extradition is a very complex legal process. It will take its own time. India will take all the factors into account. We have to also recognize that Sheikh Hasina has been a good friend of India. And when I say friend, I must point out that it's not just any kind of pre-election. When I was High Commissioner, it was the Begum Khalda regime, and they were absolutely not regarding India's security red lines at all as far as support for Indian insurgent groups from Northeast, as far as activities, anti-Indian activities from Bangladesh soil done by Pakistan, all those things were concerned. But when Sheikh Hasina came in 2009, she said clearly, I will respect India's security red lines, and we have friendship with all, malice towards none as our policy. So they have developed their friendship even with Pakistan, even with China and others. But with India, they respected the security red lines, and we had a very good economic cooperation going, beneficially for both sides. So this is a different matter altogether, that now if they want extradition, we will consider it on all aspects. But certainly a friend needs to be supported to thick and thin, and her presence in India should not in any way affect the working out of a steady relationship between the newly elected government whenever the elections are free, fair, and participatory. We've said that we'll have substantive relations only with the newly elected government. And in the meanwhile, we of course were prepared to continue the earlier economic cooperation, but Muhammad Yunus regime did not want to do that, and so they took a number of decisions that put a big block in that way. But we certainly will insist on free, fair, inclusive, and participatory elections in order that they are credible. And then whichever government is elected, it's quite fine. Once a government is democratically elected and reflects the will of the people, it's fine. We will do business with that government, and I'm sure one can work out, mutually beneficial steps and progress in the relationship.
Ambassador Sikri, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global.
Thank you. Bye.